when the video went viral, I stopped logging onto my socials. That first night, the phone shuddered on my pillow with notification after notification. Rises and falls, laughter and insults, ticking views creeping up on that bright blue screen. My sister Mia had filmed it, I guess as a joke for her story. The Sunday lunch where I explained the startup, laid out my dream, and tried to make them listen. I hadn't guessed she was holding up the phone, not even pretending to care. Her face blank as Grandma interrupted me with her dry little snort. "Gene splicing? You're going to mess with God now, eh?" Uncle Mark's words. My hands cupped the mug of weak tea, and I tried to find my place in the little speech about the AI modeling, about the way we could predict protein folding in seconds now. "You want to talk to computers about diseases? Next you'll be telling us you've cured cancer with a calculator." Laughter of the meanest kind, not belly deep, but sharp-edged. I blinked, stared at the steam curling off my tea. "Just a dream," I tried to say. "Just an idea." But the voices were rising. Grandma warning me not to lose my soul, Mia biting her tongue, still giggling behind her phone. That was the 10-second clip that started making the rounds, me defending a pipe dream, their voices overlapping, my words practically trampled under their jeers. By morning, my mentions were flooded. Gene Genius family roast, too smart for dinner. And 1,000 variations. Strangers called me both a fraud and a freak. A few classmates from secondary school joined in. Even some old teachers, I later found out, liked the comments, as if in confirmation of what they'd always suspected. I was ridiculous. For weeks, I dreaded walking into a coffee shop or stepping onto a bus. I stared at the sea-glass sky through my window every evening, Vancouver's soft spring rain tapping at the ledge, and I wondered what I'd done to deserve becoming a meme. At least my parents didn't laugh, but they also didn't defend. "People are spared of new things," Dad said, trying and failing to reach my eyes across the kitchen table. He pressed down on the morning paper, not meeting my stare. "Maybe take a break from it, kiddo. No need to rile folks up." But I couldn't. I'd spent 3 years on tiny grants, making do with borrowed lab space and ancient computers, pouring longer and longer nights into code and petri dishes. I'd built my own neural networks, spitting error after error into the abyss, all for the single chance that what I was working on could actually change lives. For weeks after the video, I couldn't go back to the lab. My name was a joke. My inbox was a dumping ground for memes and abuse. Even the landlord snickered at me as I passed him in the hall. I started using headphones to anticipate the groans from next door, every time friends visited to reenact my science sermon. The city seemed to shrink around me, all glass towers and rain-blotched pavement, a place that suddenly had no use for me. But I read the research, clung to the successes of others, the potential of CRISPR to repair a body instead of breaking it, the new deep learning architectures that could, if given enough time and the right data, unravel the scattered code of rare diseases. I kept gathering notes, scribbling code onto the backs of receipts when I couldn't sleep. I'd carry my laptop everywhere, through the green, dripping calm of Stanley Park, the humming length of Granville Street. I had to believe my ideas were more than a joke. I returned to the lab. The embarrassment burned, but the routine steadied me. Mornings spent in a chemical hush, watching as microscopic cells split and multiplied under the fluorescence. Afternoons coding at the research hub off Main Street, caffeine staining every page of my notebook. Sometimes the laughter would echo in my head, hot and sour, but I'd lose myself in the work. Then came the setback. The funding dried up. My collaborator, Raj, messaged late one night. "Board's pulling out. Not enough data," they said. "Sorry, kid." We'd known the risk. Biotech was ice thin, and our results were still early, the promise of success written in probabilities, not guarantees. Weeks went by. More silence from everywhere. My parents stopped bringing up the future. Mia sent me links for barista jobs, never mentioning the video. I got by babysitting, running random errands, tutoring chemistry and math to kids who laughed, but at least never filmed it. Every rejection email took something out of me, like erosion, but I kept working. For a year, I lived like a ghost with a mission. Rent was barely manageable. My sneakers wore out. I duct taped the soles. I sold my old game console, my mountain bike, even my winter coat, keeping only my laptop and my stacks of research journals. Winning grant money became my only currency of hope. One biting January morning, I got the message that everything turned on. A biotech accelerator based in Seattle but investing in Vancouver wanted to meet. Your AI model for protein interaction prediction, impressive, the director wrote. Let's talk about scaling it up. It felt unreal. I'd read the email 3 times. That weekend, I stood in front of a wall of glass in their sleek, tidal white offices, heart pounding, explaining my project for the first time to people who actually listened. The team probed my algorithm. How did the model learn? Could it tackle obscure congenital diseases? Would it work on environmental targets? I talked until my voice cracked, but this time no one laughed. The CEO's nods were real, not indulgent. They gave us a year's funding, a workspace, and resources I'd only dreamed of. Raj came back on board. We built out the code from scratch, every sprint a mix of exhaustion and hope late nights over gas station ramen, data visualizations taped to the wall, half the team crashing under their desks when nights ran to dawn. Within months, we'd run promising trials. Our AI model had flagged previously hidden genetic variants tied to a rare childhood disease and suggested modifications nobody else had tried. Our lead biochemist was nearly in tears. I worked like I was starving, not for food anymore, but for proof. We published our results in a major journal. This time, the laughter was gone, replaced by careful interviews and cautious respect. We received another round of funding, more press, invitations to conferences. The university that once declined my dissertation invited me to speak. In the evenings, when Vancouver's glass towers flashed neon and the rain glazed every sidewalk, I'd walk through the city, breathing the cold, sea-salted air. No one pointed a camera anymore. Sometimes I dared look in storefront reflections, half expecting to see the lost, anxious mess from before, but instead catching someone steadier, jaw finally unclenched, eyes alert. My parents' house sat close to the Fraser River, hedged by blackberry brambles and overgrown grass. 5 years earlier, I'd walked out with a duffel bag and no clear plan. Now, holding the presentation envelope that held the news, the first trials complete, the new AI-assisted gene therapy rolling out in clinics across Canada and Europe, I stood in their driveway, nervous as ever. A smoky dusk hung over the neighborhood, the mountain caps blushing with sun. Walking up the steps, I could hear laughter, Mia's voice, Grandma's lower, light and dismissive, the clatter of plates. Mom let out a squeak when she pulled open the door. "You're early," she said, pulling me in, her arms tense at first, then trembling with what felt like pride. They'd done up the dining room for my homecoming, bunting, some awkwardly cheerful "welcome back" balloons. My father tried a big rough hug, clapping my shoulder so hard my teeth clicked. The table vibrated with the same energy as before. Uncle Mark had the seat of command, carving a roast, booming about his neighbor's son, some hockey success, but he paused when I entered, setting his knife down. Mia sat beside him, awkward selfie smile already fading as she held up her phone. "Hey, superstar," she said. The words had no edge. The mocking had evaporated, replaced by something close to awe, a note that startled me. Grandma took my hand, arthritic fingers, cool and strong. "Tell me, child," she said, "what's this everyone says you've built?" I waited until plates were cleared, glasses refilled, and the kitchen's white lights bathed everyone's face with a warm, familiar glow. My voice was steady when I spoke, steel under the tenderness I felt. We built a therapy, I began. With AI, we mapped mutations for a syndrome that's never had a real treatment. The model found an intervention, a way to edit genes before they trigger the disease. The first children have received it. I reached into my bag for the heavy folder. This is our data, cleared by the health authorities. We're going live in clinics. British Columbia is the first site. I was asked back to speak, to explain why we invested here, because this is where the dream started. The folder hit the table. I opened it to the main chart. 20 children's progress, before and after. Photos, names redacted. A line graph rising through blue-shaded hope. The room fell silent. Grandpa rose to peer over Mark's shoulder. Even Mark's fingers trembled as he turned to page scanning the official signatures, the hospital seals. Grandma pressed her lips, staring at the letter bearing my university's crest, inviting me as keynote, not as embarrassment. No joke, I said quietly, voice barely above a breath. And no viral video. This is real. Grandma, tears in her eyes, squeezed my wrist. Did it, she whispered. Mia set down her phone, reached for my hand. It changed lives? Dad asked, voice low. It will already is. There's more to do. I choked the words out. The old shame flared, but it met something taller, a root that had grown beneath every insult and joke. Uncle Mark cleared his throat, blustering. That's really something. Couldn't have happened without your stubbornness. He managed half a smile, pride flickering through his gruffness. Yet it was Mia whose words struck deepest. She leaned in, eyes shining. I always knew you'd make it.